The greatest showman. Here I am. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Star Report. This is Jason. That's me. And we are here at New Dimensions Crystals and Reiki in downtown Brenham, Texas. It is June the 26th. This report will cover June the 26th through July the 2nd. And let's jump right into it. The sun, our closest star, which is why I put it in the star report, has been quiet for the last week for the most part. No big flares, no coronal holes. Been some cool activity happening on it. Like there was a big filament collapse, but nothing erupting towards the Earth where we would feel the impact. There was a minor, what they call a full halo CME, I think a couple days ago, but it was very light. So probably into tomorrow, maybe even into Friday is when that's going to impact the Earth, right? So you might feel that sort of heightened uh, energy move through the body, right? Some people will describe high energy as an anxious feeling, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It could be vibrant. And then sometimes CME impacts also are cardiac oriented, right? So if you have cardiac issues, you might have those things flare up or become more noticeable on days of where those impact. Yeah, so just pay attention to the solar weather. There are several sunspots that are on the Earth-facing part of the sun, but like last week, they didn't really erupt as much as their size and complexity said they should. So we've been given a reprieve, at least this month, right? Because it was the same situation, and they did erupt in May when we had all that auroral stuff, right? So it's basically that same activity of sunspots. They're just not having flaring and definitely not CMEing. That's not probably a word. They're not CMEing at us like they were in May, and so that's a good thing. Or a bad thing, right? It's kind of like, oh, it's building up pressure, and when it's kind of like a volcano, right? The more pressure it has, the more you're worried about the explosion. But don't worrying does nothing. Worrying manifests what you worry about. In general, moving on to the sun sign. We are currently in Cancer, right? In the alchemical, right? How does that alchemy is? How does the body process the cosmic energy, right? So as above, so below. You can get into all the phrasings with all the famous guys on TikTok and YouTube that talk about what they know about um, all of that and the original sayings and what it really means. But nonetheless, you can sort of think the macrocosm and the microcosm, or the global cosmic and the fractal. Anyway, Cancer is the sign that we are in, which is usually the crab. Kind of looks like those two nines or two sixes side by side if you're looking for the symbol of it. And physically, that's going to affect you in the breast, the stomach, right? Stomach is higher, right? Goes into the esophagus, right to the top of the stomach. And then everybody, where they call their stomach is where your actual intestines are, not necessarily the stomach. So I think a little higher when you're thinking the stomach. What am I going in? Oh yeah. Also the spleen, right? Spleen is going to be right here at your rib cage on the little teapot on your left side. I hope that transfers to left side when you're looking at the camera. And is usually about expansion and contraction, right? So sometimes in the season of Cancer is a good time to do an exercise program, right? Expand and contract of like the muscles, but it really is almost feeling like this expansion and contraction, like you're trying to stretch and expand, like you're trying to stretch your muscles, right? So you get a little bit, and then you can get a little bit further and stretch a little bit more. That's really this sort of back and forth that goes on during Cancer, and usually in the physical body. But this can also feel like that as the demands upon you and your beingness, right? So pay attention to that, the mental emotional aspect of that as well. And then Cancer is ruled by the moon. So the moon phases during the Cancer season will have an intensified effect on you physically. And so the moon is really that ability to create capacity, divine feminine, associated with the metal of silver, right? So If you're attracted to being wearing silver, uh, silver, these days of the season of Cancer, then that's probably why. We are currently only in one retrograde, but that changes by the end of this week's report. So currently we're in Pluto retrograde. Pluto, old wounds, hidden power, right? The farther out the planet, the deeper inside of the physical form or in the mental capacity, the inner reaches of the brain, um, is Pluto retrograde, right? And so just sort of think about it's going over review, right? So this is almost like if you are tracking down a problem or an issue and you keep going back to what started. Is it, if it's an engine, right? Is it something simple as a battery connection? Is it a dirty air filter? And then you start removing different parts of the engine, and maybe it's something weird got loose in the cylinder head, blah 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 blah, all these kinds of things, right? Deeper and deeper with inside the engine to diagnose why the engine overall is functioning at not peak stuff. That's the kind of energy that goes on during Pluto. Leads us into today, Wednesday. Today, Wednesday, 6/26 is a 22 master day. 2606 2024 equals 22, right? When you add those all as an individual number, that's how you get the numerological total result, whatever. That's how you get to the number 22. Today, really, along with the master day, is really Venus is influencing you. So the planet Venus is feminine energy and heart energy. And so really the day is going to be about maybe being challenged and or called to encounter your ability to master your emotions. And really, I think this is going to be more of a refining of how you use your emotions to create and manifest what you want, not what you don't want, right? And so that's going to be some deep-seated sort of examinations, right? But it's going to be almost synchronicity, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Leads us into Thursday, 6/27. Saturn and Mercury are really going to be affecting the day the most. And so you want to pay attention on Thursday about how you communicate and if it's clear, if it's concise, and then if the emotion that is going on within it is matching what you're trying to say. And so reason that sort of it is Saturn is about accountability, and Mercury is about communication, right? And so you're going to be accountable for what you say. So you want to have measured things and what you say out loud. But as per usual, since we're in Pluto retrograde, this is also about the self-talk. How are you when you're examining yourself? What are you looking at? Are you looking at something that is whole, that has something wrong with it? Or are you looking at something that is broken, that needs to be fixed, right? And so perspectives like that matter in how you communicate to yourself. So you might want to govern, or at least pay a little bit more attention and go a little slower than you might usually do when you're sort of communicating to yourself. Leads us into, almost felt like I was muted there for a second. It's just a weird, my headphones are doing weird things to my ears. Moods us into Friday, 6/28. The moon is on its way to new, right? And so that means it's getting darker. So think about where we're in the season of Cancer and it's governed by the moon, right? So this idea of what we're working on getting darker is more of the shadow stuff, what's working below the surface. You want to pay attention to that. And really, that can be a task, or it can be an anticipation of when we hit new moon. It's really a reset for the new path, right? We do the clearing on the full moon, and then when we get to the new moon, there's this all ability to do something new, something different, right? So if you've been working for a choice point or a move or a job change, Friday is a good day to do that. Or maybe the universe does it for you, because people get fired on Fridays. Not that I want to put that hurt on you, but just sort of use that energy of Friday to sort of see what those kinds of shifts are, which leads us into Saturday and Sunday. We'll do those days together, the 29th and the 30th. The reason we're going to do them together is because our next retrograde starts to happen, and we know that happens over a day or two. And that is going to be Saturn, which goes into retrograde. Discipline, responsibility, structure, right? So, uh, like we're doing that examination of Pluto, of old wounds and things we'd like to release, and even hidden powers and talents. Now, the discipline that comes along with discovering those, right? If you are indeed a gifted uh, psychic, then what are the structures that you need to put in forth to foster that gift, right? What are the practices, right? And this is where people sometimes plateau because they don't build in the structure to keep expanding, right? They say, oh, look, I can see this, or I've experienced this metaphysical reality, and then they don't do all the regimented stuff they did to get to this point, and then they don't build a regimen around expanding from there and going to a new place, and sort of rely on a narrow set of skills that they might have obtained during some kind of thing like that. So discipline, responsibility, structure, right? Accountability. So how are you responsible to yourself? What kind of structure? And then, with that Pluto combining with that, right? What kind of deep structures, what kind of core processes, what kind of, if we're thinking computer code, right? This would be the BIOS back when computers used to like do, and then the computer would come on, right? There was all these things that just run naturally that are set in stone. What kind of underlying things do you have set in stone? And this could be thought processes, this could be belief systems about the self. Uh, you know, how big and how great you could be, right? There might be something limiting in there, like you don't even know is running. And so this is really the opportunity over the weekend to sort of see what that is, and sort of see how those background thought patterns, processes, belief systems, are they helping you synchronize with your past, or are they in resistance and in conflict with, right? Are you um, do you have the wrong if you're thinking cars again, do you have the wrong tune system on the equipment that you're trying to build, right? So you've decided you want your life to look like this, and you've put the equipment around it, but do you have the right operating system, the computer thing, to make those things speak to it each other the correct way, right? So that's the energy of the weekend. So if you've got time to contemplate, hey, what's the nature of my own reality, and is there something at my core that might be hindering what I'm trying to do with my life that I can't see? Um, and one of the questions you might ask yourself is, how are you handling challenges, right? Because usually Saturn is a challenge to the way you've been doing things, holding you account to how you've been doing them, right? You might be doing things perfectly, right? But to be accountable for that is to re-examine them and see that you are doing them correctly. So you want to see, how are you handling challenges is going to be a good question to sort of pick up on these subtleties that you might not be able to see. And then, can it improve, right? How can I be better is a question to be asking on that. And then, where did I put that at? Oh, there it is. Next thing, I was like, I'm going to talk about synchronicity again, though. Uh, Maybe I'm excited about that. Maybe I'm not. Which leads us into Monday, July the 1st, halfway through the year. Optimism rises, right? It's almost like even even if you're on a bad vacation, when it's halfway over, you're like, oh, I'm almost home, right? So the energy of July doesn't have to be that. I don't say that's negative. It doesn't have to be that sarcastic, but it is halfway through the year, and so optimism rises that um, things are going to be okay, or that you're accomplishing what you're going to do. And of course, that's going to start to rise against the narrative of public discourse, especially on maybe not even just on mainstream, but where we come towards an election season here in the United States. Despite all the news that the sky is falling, optimism can rise when you sort of pay attention to how good you are doing and how you can improve, right? So when you become accountable to self, then you aren't necessarily governed by everything that's crumbling around. Leads us into Tuesday, retrograde number 3, right? So we'll be layered on 3 retrogrades. Tuesday, July the 2nd, is Neptune goes retrograde. Neptune, spiritual transcendence. And it'll be retrograde till December. And I think Saturn's going to be retrograde until November. And then Pluto, if you're wondering, is going to be until October. And so, spiritual transcendence is really about a synchronicity, right? Where it's transcending time and space, right? So you'll start to see things align when Neptune starts to get you to see it, right? And so that synchronicity is going to align with the Saturn, right? The accountability, the boundaries, and then the deep seated Pluto stuff, right? So when you look at all that, you'll be looking for synchronicities, and a lot of times it's harder to sort of govern those and see the authenticity of those because things are so good at algorithming our stated and even our own mind thoughts, right? So sometimes you get an ad for something you only thought about but never asked anybody out loud, never Googled. That kind of energy, that synchronicity that the algorithm sort of places in front of you really want to be able to be in touch with that inner self so you can sort of test, muscle test, do whatever test you can survive to sort of see, is this the algorithm? Does the algorithm have me right? You can really think about the movie The Matrix, right? The Matrix has you. But knowing that there's a matrix there, can it ever really have you? Even if you're stuck in it, right? And so it's that idea of sovereignty and selfness that really is sort of the idea or the feeling of Monday, excuse me, of Tuesday the 2nd, when Neptune joins the triple retrograde. And so what deep boundary are you giving to your spiritual self that perhaps was created from a wound? Would be questions to sort of ask the self on Tuesday. Even a minor one, right? Something that wasn't even something that sort of shattered your world, but all of a sudden you're like, I liked the way that phrased, or I trust the person who did that. And you've just been at the back of your mind going by that phrase and testing realities based on that phrasing that somebody gave to you, with probably when you were young. Those are the kinds of things that you can examine and come into contact with and sort of see, is it a false boundary? Is it a boundary I want to keep? Is it a boundary that is enforced by synchronicity by the algorithm? Or is it a boundary that is synchronistic with what my soul is trying to lead me for and what I'm trying to build? Right. So that sounds like a deep conversation on a Tuesday. I'm like, wow, I'm really going down the rabbit hole on that one. But that's going to be the week, right? So it starts off slow. It's a good thing. Maybe the sun's giving us a break because all of the shifts that are happening in the skies, in the cosmos, are intense, or at least ones that are self-focused. So they might feel more intense, right? We can't externalize them to somebody else, or something else outside of us is doing it or is being affected by it. But you want to think of these things that things are alive, right? So this might be the nature of what happens to a company, right? You might have a consultant come in. This might be the nature of what happens to a nation, right? If these things are going to go October, November, December, right? These are going to be things that are happening collectively. If you identify the nation as a one entity, right? Self-examination into the election season, right? So, but mostly this is a self-examination energy, and then fixing us or fixing yourself, or maximizing yourself because you're not broken. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Will affect the group more than trying to fix the external and hoping you change. So just take that into account as we move into full on summer and halfway through the year. I think it's going to be just fine. I really do think that. Because I would have manifest that rather than everything not being fine. So until next week, of course, I'm here at newdimensionscrystals.com in downtown Brenham, Texas. If you're actually going to see me in physical person, if you want to book an appointment, click book now, see what's available for you. Regular energy session, regular. Um, Nothing regular is here. Energy sessions and then breathwork sessions, of course. The easiest thing to do through all of this is monitor your breathing in the nose, out the mouth, as full and as deep as you can into the belly, chest. You can even do a tripart: belly, chest, throat, out the nose. That'll start to generate everything you really need in your body by just oxygen exchange at the thalamus, yeah, thymus, thalamus. this part where the heart and the lungs interchange um, is really the thing. And then in the nose is really going to give you calming, centered energy. And then filling all the way down into the belly is really where you have the awakening of creativity and manifestation and control and boundaries, right? Not this anxiety and fight or flight of the shallow chest. So, one of the easiest things to do if you're struggling with all this is to just breathe. And then just think about your breathing, right? Don't think about anything else. Just, right? You don't even have to think in and out. You can just think about flow in, flow out, flow, shift flow, right? Whatever you sort of can release into just the action of breathing, because that's a choice, right? That's choosing to be alive, not controlled, not dead, not half alive, right? So just breathe. I think that's everything. Until next week, everybody, many blessings.